Hello everyone, welcome back to Palling with Peacemaker for the last time on It's a Wonderful Podcast. Jeannine, there's no more Palling with Peacemaker, or supposedly there's no more
for the time
Peacemaker.
being. Plans.
For the time being. Who knows what will happen in the future with the DC universe as ran by James Gunn. But at the moment, there is no season 3 planned of Peacemaker. So obviously, there's no season 3 planned of Palling with Peacemaker, the official after show of Peacemaker. No, we're not.
No, definitely not.
We're not that. Obviously. Why are we coming months later? If we are,
exactly.
For example. But it feels quite poignant and sad, I suppose, bittersweet in a way, that we're bringing this show to seemingly an end, certainly for the time being. You know, we kind of recently had that sort of feeling with Talking Ted Lasso, didn't we? Although Ted Lasso is supposed to be coming back. But, still haven't heard much about that. So when that will be, nobody knows. Obviously, nothing on our TV-based shows here on a Monday, whether you are listening on the It's a Wonderful Podcast feed today or watching us on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. Do, of course, subscribe wherever you are and put your notifications on and all that good stuff. Share it around. But certainly nothing will feel quite as end of an era as when we do finish discovering Dawson's Creek.
I know.
On this particular, feed. But it's exciting today to be talking about these 2 episodes of Peacemaker. I think there were certain things, maybe certain things that didn't happen in these 2 episodes.
That you were expecting?
That I was expecting to happen, that I was expecting to at least see a bit more of, maybe. That I don't think we did. It would be wrong for me to say the things we did say left me unfulfilled, or did see left me unfulfilled. But it was almost the things that we didn't see have left me unfulfilled, because I'm kind of like, well, of the entire season, we've been like, oh, the alternate, dimension. What is this alternate dimension? We get that great reveal last time out, don't we, of exactly what it is. And we open this, 7th episode of the season.
Right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it, all this mob chasing Adebayo down. Oh, God, this is going to be really, really intense. How much, darker is this episode going to possibly go? Do I want to see it go darker? I mean, kind of. It would have been interesting to have seen it really, really go darker and explore fully in depth kind of how this world came to become what it has become. What does it look like, in the details of that? And we never really get that. We just get the kind of blanket statements of it. The Nazis won World War II, and now the world's like this, and all minorities and non-white people and non-straight people are in camps and all this kind of stuff. So if you're going to be that dark with it outwardly, then do you not want to do a bit more in exploring the sort of nuances of that, the details of it all, rather than just giving us that as a statement? Maybe us then as viewers going, oh, well, I mean, I kind of want to see certain characters' reactions to this, because I think that would make for great storytelling. And it never gives us that, and it kind of stops the whole chase down fairly quickly in this 7th episode, and we'll get into it now. I don't know if you've got a little synopsis to start us off.
I do, just kind of a brief telling of kind of what happens. As Flagg and Argus close in, the 11th Street kids attempt to keep the ever-increasing dangers of the alternate world around them at bay.
So I suppose they do, but then it's focused in much more on just
on the characters,
his family. rather
Exactly. And
than the world itself.
yeah, so I think that was kind of the biggest complaint people had about the season. Like, why not stretch it to 10 episodes? So we do get an episode where you actually have to delve into this world and maybe free the people from these camps or something.
Yeah.
And so people were kind
Adrian's
of like,
talking about being the Sons of Liberty and all this kind of stuff. Let's
exactly.
go and
And we
see
see
him do
them.
that.
Yes, and we've seen the Sons of Liberty and all of that kind of thing and how they were misinterpreted by Chris.
Yeah.
Um, but so I think that was kind of the common complaint with people, that generally they enjoyed the season and they loved kind of the bold swing of something like this. But they set it up and then we don't really dig deeper. And so that was kind of a
Yeah.
frustration I think a lot of people had with it with this season. Um, but I do like that we focus on these characters and these character moments, because I think that's important too. But had you maybe stretched it to like a 10 episode, then you could have given us all of that, especially if there were no kind of plans to kind of continue on such a focused story with these characters, because
Yeah.
presumably Chris's story is going to continue in either another show or in the movies. So why not give us as much of the focus on these characters as we can, since we're not going to probably continue focusing on them
Yeah.
later down the line. So yeah.
It's not like you didn't, or it's not like you weren't giving your characters very heavily emotional scenes
Mhm.
and emotional moments to perform with either. You very much were doing that, and maybe
Yeah.
okay, because you did do that, you maybe didn't want to overdo that. But I do think exploring more of the alternate world once we knew what it was
Mhm.
would have just prompted even more of, I think, what made this season good, which
Yeah.
was these kind of heavier emotional moments
Mhm.
and more and intense discussions
Yeah.
and real showing or showcasing of the 11th Street Kids as one loving unit,
Yeah.
which we could have seen them go out with the Sons of Liberty for a day and try
Yeah.
and do some good within there, and then
Right.
have what ultimately happens in this episode,
Yeah.
happen with Augie and Keith and everything else,
Yeah.
which I think is great and emotional in its own
Mhm.
right. Absolutely wonderful. But I do feel there was something missing, and I didn't want to feel like there was something missing, because I
Yeah.
think it was still a really great episode with really interesting things going on, really, really tough things
Mhm.
going on
Yeah.
at times, and really, really exciting things going on. Adrian kind of ruins the entire thing, obviously, as he always does, by thinking
Yeah.
it's
Ye
all a bit worse than it is.
Yeah.
So I was very annoyed by Adrian in this particular episode. Not that I'm not annoyed by Adrian anyway, because he can be
A little grating.
particularly bothersome.
But,
Um,
yeah, and I think there's a common frustration as well with the fans that, like, love him and feel like the show is kind of a little too mean to him. So I
the
do
show's
like.
very mean to him. The
Yeah.
show does hate him. The show makes him out to be a really obnoxious person at
Yeah,
times.
and I mean, even the kind of, thing that he does that is probably what you're referring to, is like, he didn't know. How could he
He
know?
didn't.
So, it's fair, but it's still, like, frustrating. And it's like, I hold on to that really beautiful moment that I've talked about before that shows how much he cares about Chris. And so the fact that, like, people still treat him like shit sucks. So I think there was, like, a consensus of, like, because James Gunn is very finger on the pulse. He is seeing people's
Yeah.
tweets. He commonly will answer when people respond to him online or have a question or something. He's very kind of transparent with us about what he's thinking, what he's doing, his choices. He'll answer questions. He sees what we're saying about what he does. So I feel like there maybe was a line and a conversation thrown in there because he saw people kind of upset with how Adrian was being treated. So we do see, I think it's kind of the cold open of the next episode of, we get to kind of see the start of where the party boat went before we get on the party boat with
Yeah.
Harcourt and Chris. And she asks him, like, I think you should be a little nicer to Adrian. And he's like, "Oh, that's weird coming from you." And she's like, "Well, he's growing on me, and he really cares about you, and I think you just should be a little nicer to him." And like he explains that like he had an older brother who didn't treat him well, and so I think he's just looking for kind of that kind of relationship with somebody. So they did
Yeah.
throw a conversation of like Harcourt of all people encouraging Chris to be nicer to him. So I feel like that was like he like knows that that's what we think about
Yeah.
how they've treated the character. But yeah, like I was saying, I hold on to that beautiful moment from season 1 when Chris could not take that shot at the children, the butterfly
Yes.
taken over children. And without any words, Adrian just comes up, takes the gun from him, and takes the shot for him because he sees him
Yeah.
all shaken up and he can't do it. So just a quiet moment of friendship where Adrian's not being grating or annoying, obnoxious. He just sees his friend in distress and he's like, I got this. So such a beautiful kind of underlying thing with the character. Even the whole thing of him going to prison and getting arrested and beating up all of these people in service of him, of his friend.
Yeah.
Like
I
beautiful
don't
moments in
think
season 1 of showing how much he cares about this person. And then in this season, they kind of let that down and kind of reverted back to him just being kind of an obnoxious addition to the group, which kind of just was a little bit of a bummer for me.
But I don't think even in this season his fondness, friendship, and dedication to Chris in particular, and I suppose to everybody else now that he's developed friendships with, I don't think that's ever in question. I just think he's an idiot and he's treated like an idiot by the writing of the show. And that's fine sometimes, but it's also not fine sometimes. It will lead to him behaving very, very rashly.
Yeah, where is this character who had these really beautiful, quiet, supportive moments in season 1? We didn't really see any of that. Of course, we saw him, like you said, part of the group, part of the team, doing what he could for the team. But ultimately, we didn't see those kind of really simple, quiet, kinder moments from him in this season.
I mean, there's a kind of odd scene early on, I suppose, in this 7th episode as well. Obviously, so it opens very intensely with Adebayo being chased down, but who comes there fairly quickly to kind of save her from the mob? Judo Master of all people. Where was he the entire last episode? He went in there, went into the alternate dimension. We didn't see him, but now here he is, seemingly having figured out everything on his own. And immediately, and he's been hiding up in this vacant house where these people are on
vacation or whatever.
Because he himself is a minority, so would likely be chased down himself if he
exactly. So I do kind of like this unlikely kind of pairing and conversation of characters. So ultimately,
that's why I call it odd, because it just seems a bit strange,
unexpected. To see them together.
Are we also now? I understand why, but immediately supposed to feel sympathetic towards Judo Master, actively a really annoying character who does nothing but get in everybody's way. Yes, we are supposed to feel that.
But
way.
I think it works.
Enough? Does it do enough? I'm aligned to agree with you.
Yeah.
But does it come out of nowhere? A little bit.
Okay. Well, I mean, he was kind of an under orders kind of worker for the butterfly people. So, it wasn't like choices he was making on his own accord kind of thing. But finding himself in this position, he can quickly sympathize on a personal level. So I like that he's somebody who does his job. He's working with Argus, but he can still kind of call out when people piss him off and things like that, even though he's working with them and for them or whatever. So in this situation, even though he has a mission, he still has a human sympathetic aspect to him. So I appreciated that. But I liked kind of the coming together of these characters. It was really interesting because we see Adebayo getting chased by this mob. Keith ultimately gets called away by Augie to come home. But the mob is still chasing her. She jumps over a fence into a home's pool. She jumps into the pool to swim away. All of them chase her into the pool. And then here comes Judo Master to help her out of the pool and then electrocute all of the people in the water.
Yes.
And then it kind of is a funny thing that he says, that's the most people I've killed with electricity in a swimming pool. And she's like, well, how many have you done that to before? He's like, oh, 4. So it's not, this is just like a normal thing that he's done before, kind of
very
thing.
normal.
Yes. So
Very
he takes her
normal.
to kind of this hideout and they have a really kind of nice conversation. And they even bring up old grievances because, you know, in last she tased him a bunch of times. And
Yeah.
so they kind of find common ground, like as queer minorities, because he kind of maybe alludes to the fact that he's probably queer as well. And they sit and they play Scrabble, which is like, you know, this world's Scrabble because everything has like a weird off name. And they have a really good conversation, and she ends up kind of confiding him about what's going on with her and her wife, Kia, as we've seen them kind of have some issues with basically this plan that they made for their future together, and Adebayo only getting into kind of this spy stuff to make enough money to do that. But once she kind of got into it and got into this group and became an 11th Street kid, she found she really had a passion for that. So now how could she possibly go back to this kind of a little too settled plan of a life that she originally had thought to do with Kia? And Kia's
to be fair to Judo Master, he does give her that little push.
He gives
to
her
go
some
and
clear,
speak to her.
he gives her that clear advice of, you know, you might be discounting her dreams just as much as as you know, she's discounting yours. So I think you need to have a real conversation about that, and really be honest about kind of your future. So he really implores her to talk to Kia and have that conversation and give her some perspective. So yeah, I love this kind of really simple, quiet conversation between two unlikely characters, so that when our kind of interesting allyship that comes up in the last episode, there's some context for it with this really kind of nice scene between the two of them, and getting to see this character be able to relate beyond his mission and on a very kind of human, personal level. So I like that.
Yeah, it was different. It was out of nowhere. It was. And I just think that's maybe the nature of an 8-season television show that, like you and
episode,
other people said, shouldn't have been an 8-season television show. It should have been a 10 or 12 episode, season episode. 10 or 12 episode television show. And maybe things just felt a little rushed. It's like, I've not got a problem with what's going on. I've got a problem with how quickly
we get there. On. I get that.
Which I think sometimes can be the case. You know, there's nothing wrong with a couple more episodes.
Just take time, develop some really interesting presented ideas that you had. You know. Yeah.
I do think a 10 episode is such a great length of TV show when you want a mix of so many different things. When you want your action drama, but when you also want humor moments and quiet character moments, but also grand scale things. 10 episodes. I know, and Peacemaker's not long either, is it? Peacemaker doesn't go to 45 minutes. It's half. It's sort of 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Apart from the finale, which I think was about an hour, but it's not got the same length of time to, I think, do what it wants to do. And I'm almost questioning why it's not been given that length of time, given that surely Gunn has, you know, authority over his own show in the DC world, given that he's running DC. So, you know, what's gone on there? Did you think it was fine? And it was fine. I'm not massively complaining here.
No, but this is a common feeling I think most people had, that they wanted kind of more from things, and they didn't give us that after kind of setting up some really interesting things. So not a crazy thought.
I also do think a few things that happen in the finale are a little bit unusual, given the structure of how shows tend to work. Not that that's a bad thing; it's an out
Mhm.
there thing, and I think if there's something that Gunn can be good at, it's being out there and whacking you over the face with something that you didn't expect. And I think he
Yeah,
certainly does do that in the finale in one or two instances.
yeah,
Whether it entirely felt satisfying
yeah,
or perhaps left you hanging a bit.
yeah.
But there's more to get into in this seventh episode anyway, because namely and mainly all the Augie and Keith and Chris stuff is just so brutally intense almost
Oh,
when they all come
yeah.
together.
Yes. So, Adebayo and Judo Master decide to kind of hole up in this house until nighttime to go and then go back to Chris's house. And then we cut to Chris and Harcourt trying to get out of Argus because now they've been caught because the other Harcourt is there. Imposters, we see the, the Hitler mural on the wall. She's like, "How did you not?" He's like, "How did I not notice that?" Like,
I mean, it is the
and
kind of the first thing you would surely notice is
exactly, but the
something like
fact,
that.
and all the copies of Mein Kampf on the tables, I'm like, "Oh
The, the
my
the
god."
flag and the flags, obviously, we saw the reveal
Yeah,
in the
mhm,
flag,
yeah, but the fact
didn't
that
we, at
he's
the
just
end of the
so
last one?
hyper focused on very specific things that he's not even really looking beyond that, it's very kind of interesting, something interesting to say about the character, kind
Well,
of
it
where
teaches you, the viewer, to be aware of your surroundings as well, doesn't it? Because,
exactly, because
stay
Harcourt,
vigilant.
yes, Harcourt and, seemingly, Judo Master clocked kind of the weirdness of this world immediately. Um, so, yeah, the fact that he kind of and he means well, it's clear it wasn't, like, an intentional thing, but the fact that he didn't kind of notice it, I like that Harcourt kind of
Yeah.
gives him a lot of shit for that. Um, but it's also very kind of comical how they just randomly start beating up guys and then, like, taking out even more guys than necessary to get out of them, just, like, knocking dudes over and going back and, like, hitting a guy one more time and that kinda stuff. So they make a pretty kind of funny escape. They're surrounded, so he has her hold on to him, and they jetpack through the glass of the door, so they get kind
Yes.
of a very clumsy escape, and then they get on the bike, and Chris is like, "How big is the door you used?" And she's like, "Why?" He's like, "'Cause I wanna take the peace cycle," like, he wants to take his bike with him. But we do get this really kind of romantic moment as they are riding away from police, and we get this really beautiful ballad, and she starts laying her head on his back, and they're
Yeah.
holding hands, and they kind of make their grip a little tighter on each other as they're riding away, and it's really sweet and romantic, and I kinda love that. And then on the other side of town, we have Keith getting back home, Augie filling him in on what Economos let slip about Chris not being Chris and that he's potentially dead and it's a different Chris and it's a different Harcourt and we need to and Augie is immediately just like telling Keith to calm down because Keith is already just kill them all kind of thing. And you
Yeah.
are a little bit surprised by Augie kind of telling him to control his temper and calm down and um basically
Well,
kind of making
this whole show has constantly been Robert Patrick just doing the most to be the most awful, aggressive,
yeah,
just horrendous man you've ever
not a
seen in your
caring bone
life.
in his body, not a sympathetic
Not
bone
a,
in his body. Yeah,
not a caring bone in his body. Constantly fueled by just anger and hate
yeah,
and kind of a sad, bad vengeance.
yeah,
Obviously, ultimately, him in the real world, our world, gets killed by Chris in season one. Obviously, we
yeah,
know all that. We've been through all that. The trauma's been dealt with.
yeah.
But he kind of has to go through it a little bit again here now, does
Yeah,
Chris.
it's rough.
Very, very unfortunately.
Yeah.
And, like, it's so unusual for, I think this is done kind of, or this is paced really, really well. Kind of almost the reveal of who Augie in this alternate world actually is,
that's a really
compared to
interesting
what
point.
we all think he's
Think
going
he
to
is,
be.
yes, what Adrian thinks he is, and hence why he does what he does. But
Yeah,
yeah, we see him having to calm Keith down, and ultimately, Harcourt and Chris get surrounded by cops. It doesn't look like they're gonna get out of this, and then the cops get blown up and shot and destroyed, and we look and it's
yeah,
Augie and Keith because they are just like, I'm gonna protect this version of Chris and send him back home. So this interesting kind of capture and listen Augie is
yeah,
really interesting. So ultimately they kind of just like kill all these cops and tell Chris and Harcourt to come with them. So now we have Chris, Harcourt, and Economos at the house, and with Adebayo, Judo Master, and the two Adrians in the bushes outside,
yes,
kind of planning how they're gonna come in. And yeah, we kind of get Augie again just trying to calm down Keith because he's raging, he's ready to kill
oh,
everybody,
Keith is,
but
yeah,
he's like, let him talk. And so he allows Chris to explain and say his piece and apologize and explain what happened to the other Chris, and um why he did what he did, why he stumbled in here drunk, and he just wanted to know what a family felt like. And Augie is really kind of a little bit sympathetic to that. And
he
he's like, I
is,
understand, but now it's like, we're not going to do anything to you. Just go home. Just go back to your world.
yeah,
And Og even mentions, he's like, yeah, that the whole dimension thing is weird because I didn't tell you about this, Keith, but I went in there once and I saw the other version of myself. And he looked like a mess. He looked like he came from a world full of hate and terrible things, and that he just kind of was beaten down by and filled with all of this hate and rage.
yeah.
So he saw
And
his other
obviously he
version.
was.
Exactly. And to think that, like, and it's just this crazy parallel because this is literally a world that rounds up minorities and hides them away.
Yeah,
A world that is all about Nazi propaganda. But yet this Augie is not as hateful as the version from our world that doesn't have any of that. What
no,
the kind of interesting thing that he's saying with this, and even kind of we get a little bit of that when the first time the two Adrians meet, and one Adrian is like, "Oh, well, if the Nazis didn't win in your world, it must be a utopia." And Adrian can't really answer that because despite that not happening, this world still isn't all that great,
yeah,
right? Um, on our side of things. So the fact that he saw this pained, hateful person and thought that his world was just as hateful as him, and he's from a Nazi-ridden world
yeah,
is just a really kind of interesting thing to kind of make your brain kind of start jogging around. So I like that he peppered in these really kind of interesting think concepts in these last few episodes, and even kind of in this baked into this season.
yeah.
Um,
Because I mean, look, okay, this version of Augie, he's hardly a son of liberty,
yeah,
but he is actively kind of not with the authoritarian nature of the government. He is very, very much kind of individualistic. It's him and Keith. They try and,
do their
him,
best.
Keith, and Chris, I suppose it was.
Yeah.
They try and do the best and help people given the situation that they're all in.
Yeah,
He's
and
not a fan of it, but he's living the life he has to live.
yes, so he gives a really great speech because Harcourt immediately calls him a Nazi, and he's like, "No, I'm not. Like, I don't really agree with
Don't
any
call
of
me
this."
that. I'm not one of them.
Yeah,
Whereas, like, real
yeah,
world Augie would have been like, yeah, I am.
yeah, exactly, and he gets actually kind of offended that she calls him that, and he's like, "I'm dealing with the cards I've been dealt, and I do the best I can. Can you say the same thing? Do you
Yeah,
go out and
it's a
help people
fair
and
point.
fight against all the injustices that you see in this world? Because that's what I try to do in this kind of messed up situation that I'm in. I try to fight as many injustices as I can in the bounds that I'm kind of forced to be in." Um, so really interesting. Also, the cops show up, and it's kind of a funny thing. We get the cop from last season, but of course he doesn't have his Asian partner
Yes.
because presumably she's probably round up in one of these camps. And they're questioning about all those cops that were killed, and he very much kind of doesn't give up Chris or anything. He's just like, "You're on my property." He's very polite to them as well. He's like,
Mm,
"I didn't say my son was innocent. I'm just saying he's not here." So come back with a warrant and then we can talk kind of thing. So he kind of shoos the cops away, and then goes back to kind of talking to them and hearing their piece. And then he starts giving this speech, as we mentioned, very kind of interesting about his mentality and how, he doesn't really agree with any of that. And it also kind of seems like maybe Keith is not in the same camp. He kind of has to constantly rein Keith in on those kind of ideals.
Oh, yeah. Keith's definitely more in line with the old
with the world as it is. Yeah. So he's giving this great speech and talking about what he does and how he doesn't believe in everything that's going on in his world. And we see kind of Adrian creep up in the window and jump through and just proceed to stab the hell out of Augie's neck, killing him.
Like really nastily, really brutally.
Yes. And Chris is just gutted because he's like, no, Adrian. And even Keith, of course, obviously now, his, the person who was keeping him at bay now kind of all in on kind of the craziness, and the cops never left. They were kind of still standing out there, and they heard kind of the commotion. So now they are kind of about to rush in there as well. So now everybody's together, the two Adrians and Ed Obio and Judo Master, and now they kind of have to fight through the house with the cops busting in and shooting up the place. Keith also trying to kill them. And
all the while Augie's bleeding out.
Yes, and Economos is still tied to this chair. And it's like chaos. So a big kind of crazy shootout breaks out. They're all trying to get back to the portal to get out of there. They just drag Economos in the chair. Keith is coming after them. He's beating the crap out of Chris. Chris is kind of apologizing.
Chris is just taking it. Chris doesn't know what to do with Keith.
Exactly.
It's never known quite what to do with seeing Keith again.
Yes, it's been a lot, understandably. So Eagly ultimately ends up attacking Keith. I think he was maybe about to shoot Chris or and Eagly comes and starts attacking Keith, and then they get him down on his knees, and the whole team, everybody's holding Keith down, and Adrian's like stabbing him in the stomach, and they're like hitting him, and Chris is just sat there watching them all hold down Keith and attack him. And he just screams, no. And
this wail that John Cena lets out here is
and we see
seriously.
And we see this flashback to when he accidentally killed Keith. So now he's reliving this trauma of Keith getting killed. And he's like, get off of him. And he shoves them all off of him and he holds him. And he says, I'm so sorry, but I can't. And he's like, we're cursed. Everything I touch it dies. And he starts kind of believing the worst about himself and feeling like this is just his lot in life. What's wrong with us? And that kind of rhetoric. And ultimately they drag him out of there because the cops are about to bust in. And so they get him out, and Harcourt asks for a gun from Adrian, from the this world's Adrian, and says, points the gun at Keith and says, I can't have you coming after him, because she knows now, like, he's full of vengeance. We kind of screwed up your world. We killed your brother. We killed your father. You're definitely going to come after us. So she goes to shoot him, but then the cops bust in and she can't do it. And she just has to go. So Adrian pulls her out of there, and we see the other Adrian kind of holding off the cops and closing the door, and they have to just run back to their universe.
So
and then
Keith's still there. I mean, Keith, he'd be messed up and quite severely injured. But
so we see him
is still knocking around.
So we see him in an ambulance. We see him kind of surviving this ordeal. So that could be something that plays into another show or a movie or something later down the line, because why leave that little nugget there? And our crew gets back to the house, because now we kind of missed the Rick Flagg of it all, of his side of things, him talking to Lex Luthor. He recruited one of his guys to come and help them find the signal of the portal. So ultimately he is able to find the portal at Adrian's. So now once they get back to Adrian's, Argus is out there waiting for them.
Yeah.
And so
I
Chris
mean, so
is just
using Rick Flag is a good bridge between these two episodes, really,
yeah,
because he does an
100%. 'Cause
awful lot in the
the
finale, does Rick
next one,
Flag?
yeah. So ultimately Chris is kind of checked out. He's done. He's tired of this because he feels like he's cursed and everything they do is cursed and it's just awful. So he decides he's just gonna give up the device. Um, and he can kind of give them the credit for capturing him in a sense so that they'll get
Yeah.
their jobs back so that Harcourt and will get her job back and all of that kind of thing. So he hands their, it's kind of this lineup, all our crew and Judo Master lined up on one side, all of our Arcus people on the other side. Chris
Judo Master
tossed
defects.
yeah, Judo Master, he walks to their side of things, and kind of gives a little bit of a look because but business is business kind of at this point.
No,
He
it isn't.
hands them
Business. No, I disagree with you. I don't
well,
like
I mean,
Judo
the facade of business is business because ultimately we see him with them at the end, so he made the right
Yes,
he
true.
didn't so he's literally just kind of like, do what I can the way I can do it for now kind of thing.
I would say have a backbone and fight and shoot Rick Flag
But
scene.
that's not the plan because we don't see any of
I
them
know
fighting.
that's not the plan.
So he goes to his side. Chris gives him the device and ultimately gets put in a car and taken to jail. And the crew just kind of has to sit back because that's what Chris wants. He doesn't want them to
Yeah.
help him. He doesn't want them to fight. He wants to just take responsibility for this and just rot in jail because he's just feeling so down on himself. So that's
Yeah.
ultimately how the episode ends, him in the back of a police car and Arcus now having the door device. So yeah.
But he's not really bothered about. I mean, is anybody bothered about the fact that Argus have this portal? No. Like
No.
Rick Flag seems to think they're really bothered about the fact that they have to give up this portal. They don't actually care at this point. Rick Flag. It's deeper than that. It's more serious than you could have ever thought. Really.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Speaking of Rick Flag, there's something else that we should have got more of. Is Rick Flag Jr. joking him in the other world?
You're literally just like
I know I bring it up.
Hung up on this. You brought it up every episode since you've seen him.
Because I just think it's that's another severely missed opportunity there. I understand maybe Joe Kinnaman had other things to do. He was promised a cameo. He got an extended cameo.
Yeah.
And not a regular spot, but
I don't think we needed him any more than we got him. It establishes this relationship that we didn't know before with him and Harcourt, thus making the relationship and her reluctance with Chris more complicated. We did get to see this.
But would it not have been fun to see our Harcourt see their world's Flagg Jr.?
I mean, I think we already got kind of that energy with him with this world's Harcourt. So why kind of retread that again in the opposite direction?
Because she knows he's dead. And she wouldn't expect to see him.
Well, I think she would now, knowing kind of what this world is, because I mean, she seemed way more perceptive than Chris was. So
I mean, true.
I don't think we needed it, but especially because of everything else we're kind of doing in these episodes. So then we kind of just move on to the next episode. That's how it ends. He kind of accepts that's his fate. Yeah. He's done.
Look, it's very heavy. It's very, very, very emotional. Very, very brutal. Very dramatic. And surprising of an episode. It's not exactly how I thought that episode following, the 6th was going to go.
Yeah.
But I was satisfied by it. I think we spoke at the start of the show about what maybe we would have wanted to see.
Yeah, and what I think most people wanted that they didn't get.
Yeah, so. in that particular episode. But I think what we did get is not remotely, bad in comparison. It's just different and it works very, very strongly, as you say, in its own right to focus it up like that. in that way. Look,
Yeah.
do I ever want to return to Nazi world? Not particularly. No, it's not a pleasant place to be, is it?
Yeah, no.
Obviously. But while we were there, we might as well have seen more.
A little bit more of it and how this world actually operates. Yeah, exactly. And I think more people would have wanted to see that too. But yeah. So we move into the next episode.
We do the big finale, Full Nelson it is called, which is a strange title until you told me that it's actually the name of the rock band that him and Harcourt go to see
on the party boat. Yeah. So they were a hair metal band of, I think, twin brothers during that kind of era of music. So yeah, Full Nelson. Peacemaker gets a wake-up call from the ever-loyal 11th Street kids. Peacemaker and Harcourt must rectify their past. Flagg's mission poses an ever-increasing threat to everyone's future.
Flagg does pose an ever-increasing threat to everyone's future. That's a very good statement there. Well, where on earth did half of the stuff with Flagg even come from in this?
And him having this,
why? This isn't how you do a finale, is it? This is how you do like a third episode in a season.
Yeah, this weird kind of gleeful montage of him, like every time they find a door that could kind of, because he's looking for a place that is like sustainable, like has good air for people to breathe, and somebody could kind of live there. And so Harcourt, now having gotten her job back for, essentially helping capture Chris or whatever, she is tasked to go in there, her and Bordeaux and Tim Meadows' character, I can't remember his name.
Yes. No idea what Tim Meadows'
Yes, and like all of his kind of Argus team that he gave ridiculous nicknames to, they're all responsible for going into these different doors and seeing what's there, because the ultimate message for Rick Flagg is to find a sustainable place, location. So she thinks he's doing it for whatever reason. She's not thinking too hard about why he wants this. So we get this montage of every time they find an interesting place, and he sends these notes to Lex, Lex kind of giving notes about whatever this place is, and him getting excited, and him high-fiving, and him and all of his people like celebrating. We see,
Lex Luthor must be sat there in prison having the time of his life. He's this is exciting, he must be thinking.
Yes, and I've got this guy who was not really on my side in Superman now, because it even comes up because we're seeing the same board of people that we saw in Superman, in the Superman movie, where
they're literally saying, Rick,
you were saying you had a very different tone the last time we saw you. About
you were very against this last time when the situation in Metropolis happened, weren't you, Rick? Yes, I was. Yes, but now I'm not. What's changed, Rick? What's changed?
And Lex Luthor, he's a great guy, and he could help us out a lot, and he's like all in on Luthor, and they're very confused.
You weren't saying this a few months ago, Rick.
Exactly. What's going on here? So he seems a little
very
too excited. Yes, so he seems very pro Luthor, really kind of excited about kind of what's happening and the results of the things that they're finding, and it's weird. And even to the point, we do see part of this montage that Bordeaux is sleeping with him, but she's even starting to get an off vibe about like what's going on with him. So ultimately we see this little bit of a team up with her on Harcourt, like something's off with what he's looking for, and why he's doing all of this. There's some weird motivation here that I'm reading.
The assumption is it's for resources, really.
Resources, and then ultimately he's also kind of looking for an alternative to, I think when he's talking to that board, he kind of is pitching it as an alternative to Belle Reve and these other kind of meta-human prisons, because somebody always escapes, so they're not the best place to hold these super powered individuals if they do in fact commit crimes. So he's also looking for a place where he can kind of put them to keep them more locked away. So that's kind of
that's his end goal. That's his but I don't think like his team are aware of this. Is what I'm saying. His team aren't aware of that's why they're looking for this particular given place. I think they literally do think it's just for resources or alien resources or extra,
anything they can
whatever
use.
it
Yeah,
may
that's kind of
be.
what Harcourt thinks is kind of what's going on. So we see them
They
kind of
meet
going.
these little alien creatures that
Well,
destroy somebody's
yeah,
face in one of the
yeah.
worlds, don't they?
Yeah, so I think like there were characters that were kind of mentioned. I think when Chris first was kind of sitting around with Augie and Keith, um, and he talked about kind of these gross little creepy creatures, and so then we
Yes.
ultimately get to see them, and they're kind of perverted, and yeah, they end up eating one of the guys' faces off, and when you shoot them, like they make these little sparkly sounds, and um then we go into like we kind of get a montage of this kind of as well. They
Yeah.
go into a door that has zombies and another guy gets
Yeah.
eaten. We open another door and we just see these like skeleton spider things just walking around. So yeah, they're constantly kind of finding these weird things in every place they go. And ultimately they end up finding salvation is what he ends up
They
calling it.
do.
Like this
What
nice
a
open.
prophetic title he
Right?
gives it.
Yes. Yes, and, it's like this open green place, breathable air, and Bordeaux and Harcourt kinda celebrating, "Okay, we found the place, potential resources, we did our mission." But ultimately, once they kind of find it, Rick Flag starts getting kinda weird about it, and
Yeah.
that's when Bordeaux is kind of on guard, and even, like, his reaction to not caring about some of the people getting killed going into these rooms, his kind of very aloof reaction also is kind of what has her looking like, "Is this safe? This is kinda dangerous, and you're just throwing us into this." So that's kind of her first
Mm.
signal to, like, something's off. But then once he finds his place and he's being kinda weird and being so all in on Luther and kinda being hush hush with Luther's kinda right-hand man who's there helping them and Otis and all of
Yeah.
them, she starts to
Yes,
kind of.
Otis.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I only ever recognize one Otis and one Otis only. It will
Oh, I'm
always be
sorry.
Ned Beatty.
Well, we do have a new Otis, and,
It's
so
only
she's.
because I don't know the man's name. I do apologize. I don't know the man's name, but it's only because only Ned Beatty pronounces it as Luthor.
Mm.
Hi, Mr. Luthor.
Luthor? Yeah.
Like that's how Otis should pronounce Lex Luthor's name, and this Otis doesn't pronounce
Doesn't
it
do
that
that.
way. So
Okay. So,
therefore,
he's not a
not
good Otis.
not a good Otis.
Oh, wow. So that's the only disqualifying factor, for this
Yes.
guy. Poor guy.
Yes.
But yeah, so Bordeaux starts really noticing some weird things, so she ends up talking to Harcourt, and, um, that's how they kind of end up kind of forming this kind of, team up a little bit,
Yeah, I
and
mean, it's a strange one, isn't it, really?
yeah.
Because you would think that Bordeaux really wouldn't care what Flagg's
Yeah.
doing. I mean, she's cyborg, you could
Mhm.
refer to her as not
But
quite
and
human
she's
if you
yeah,
wanted to.
they refer to her as a metahuman herself, so the fact that she
Yeah,
is even kind of involved in something that's maybe going against metahumans is
yeah.
weird, and the fact that he's doing it, considering he has kind of formed a bit of a relationship with her, is also kind of weird as well. So she
It's
is,
very weird,
like,
but she seems so into it
all in,
right up
exactly.
until now.
Yeah,
Like, you knew Flagg's position on metahumans,
yeah,
surely. Both seasons of Peacemaker have had its notable, heavily racist villain character. We
yeah,
had obviously Augie as season one's obviously heavily racist villain
yeah,
character.
yeah,
Yes, the butterflies being what they were,
yeah.
but Flagg is very, very anti-metahuman. He is
Mhm.
so unbelievably racist in
Yeah,
that sense towards metahumans. He
yeah.
wants rid of them.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't want them to exist. He wants to put them all into salvation
Yeah,
for all time and eternity. And
yeah,
that's what he wants to do. That is his whole
yeah,
plan. You kind of know his attitude towards this. You, Bordeaux, the metahuman. So
yeah,
so if you're going to be with him or alongside him for the entire time you've been alongside him,
yeah.
Like,
Well, that's why I think it's
why
like,
change now?
well, I
What's
think,
changed now?
well, kind of what I mentioned before. It's like she sees how little he cares about this team because they've kind of formed like this kind of tight
I
knit
mean,
team,
that's true.
her
He's
and
been
Tim
very
Meadows and that
selfish.
crew. And as soon as the first guy got his face eaten off, everybody is just like, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah.
he's dead. This is crazy. Like, what are you sending us in here for? And his reaction is very much, and she looks over and he's just like excited and
Yeah.
celebrating that they're
His
even doing
reaction
this.
is just like, go again,
Exactly.
keep going.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what alerts her, kind of this
Fair.
inhumane kind of attitude that she's starting to see from him.
I
And
just think
that's kind
it's
of what.
inhumane to be racist in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
but there are people who fight against their own best interest, because they don't want to be.
yes,
They
true.
they feel like their race, it puts them in a box somehow, or makes them feel like they're
Mm.
acting like a victim or an oppressed person. I mean, you see that from, people of color who have voted for this administration, um,
You do, I
kind
suppose.
of,
Yes.
make their cases for why they did that. So, what, you could maybe look at Bordeaux a little bit like that. Like,
Yeah, that's fair.
it's not gonna be me, even though I'm part of this group that this group seems to not like, but it's not gonna
Yeah,
be me because 'cause I'm aligned with
but it,
them.
but it, but it is
Ye
eventually going to
Yeah,
be.
so I think that is always in a mentality that ends up, I never thought the leopards would eat my face kind of mentality, you
Yes,
know?
which is very, very. The more kind of exploration of these
Yeah,
somewhat fascist ideas going on in Peacemaker is
yeah.
always very, very cleverly done.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So I love that he tapped into so many kind of topical feeling things
yeah,
that kind of resonate with how the world is looking right now.
yeah,
Um, so you could maybe throw that in the mix of things that maybe kind of read that way, that she felt
there's that
like,
poem, isn't there? That poem of like first they went for X
oh
person,
yes,
and I was happy because it wasn't me, and then
me,
next time
yeah,
they went for this person,
it's a
and I was
person,
still
and
happy because it wasn't me,
was it
and
me?
then it just kind of goes down
And
and
then there
down and
was,
down and
yeah,
down, and
and then
eventually
until
it's you.
you're alone, and then there was no one there for me because
Yeah,
everybody else had been taken, kind of thing. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And then they
So
went, and then they came for you because you were the last one left, and they were going to do it to everybody anyway, eventually.
yes. And so I think that's maybe a little bit of Bordeaux's thinking that, like,
Yeah,
the government helped me, they turned me into this, and I'm working with them and I'm sleeping with Rick Flag Sr. So it's not going
it'll
to
be
be me.
fine.
But when she sees how expendable he sees them, when he kind of
Yeah,
goes all in on switching his stance and being all in with Lex Luthor and metahumans, that's, I think, where the shift is happening for her. And she's starting to kind of raise an eyebrow to like, what is really happening here? So there's even kind of like, once they find salvation, he like congratulates Harcourt when she gives him the file, and she calls him sir, and then she's like, oh, I mean Rick, because he like made a big thing when he was trying to recruit her
yeah.
to spy on Chris. Oh, just call me Rick, Ricky, my son loved you and your family. And he kind of like talked to her that way. And now that she's given him what he's wanted, finding him this salvation location, he's very kind of cold. Oh yeah, yeah. He's like not even listening to her, telling her he doesn't need her services anymore, kind of attitude. So both of them are seeing this kind of like weird obsession that he has with this mission, what he's doing, that there's some more sinister kind of underlying things happening. So I think both of them are reading that. And ultimately, once they find it, they decide to kind of meet up and talk. And Bordeaux kind of reveals her concerns, and then they call in Adebayo, and the three of them kind of start talking and planning, and that's when kind of the birth of the idea happens. And then
Yeah.
I think the episode had opened seeing Chris and Harcourt kind of eating out at this burger place and laughing and having a good time and
Yes,
enjoying themselves.
flashbacks.
Yeah, and she's about to kind of beat up this guy, but he kind of calms her down, and she's like, "I'm glad I came out tonight because like I never would have done this." And she kind of hates to admit that she's having a good time. As I mentioned on the last episode, she kind of talks him into like being nicer to Adrian, and then they
Yeah,
walk up to this party boat that Nelson is performing at. So he's like, "We have to go."
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where the memory cuts off. But as kind of Bordeaux and her and Adebayo are talking, she goes to the bathroom and she sees the ticket stub in her mirror. And then we kind of flash back to the whole like
Yeah.
what actually happened. So we finally
But
get to
what
see
did
this
happen?
party boat thing that's been talked about. So they're on the boat and they're listening to Nelson and they're having such a good time. And then she's like allowing herself to have a little bit of fun. She's dancing, she's
Yeah.
swaying to the beat. He like takes her in his arms and like does a little spin with her. And then she ends up in his arms and then they kiss.
It's very
And
cute.
yes, it's very sweet, and then she kind of stops herself and runs away. So that's why Chris this whole time is like, "We had this great night together, we kissed, and, like, I need to know if that meant something to you." And, like, so
Yeah.
that's what it's been built up to, so we finally get to see what happened, so it was really, like, a nice moment for them, and she
I mean,
just
we
kind of got
also
scared and ran off. Yeah.
we also finally get to see an actual answer to did it mean anything to you, don't
We
we?
do.
In
Yes,
this
we do. We
episode
get
as
there as
well.
well. So kind of once uh Bordeaux kind of joins the team, we kind of see them and we hear the this season's theme music over this
Yeah.
montage of uh getting bags and getting Adrian's money. Because we opened this episode with Chris like not wanting to talk to anybody. Like he's been
No, she's
ignoring
just
them.
sat in prison.
Yes, and they're on the
Um,
visitors list. He doesn't want any of them to see him. He refuses any visitors. But ultimately, Adebayo goes to Adrian and convinces him, "Hey," she kind of reverse psychologizes him, like, "Oh, well, I must be a better friend because I'm trying to find a way to get Chris out of jail, and you're not." So that's what convinces Adrian to use this tainted, cursed drug money to
yes.
bail out Chris. So ultimately they bail him out and he goes to get Eagly, and it's even Eagly sad. He's like hiding in
Yeah.
everywhere because Chris is gone. Um, and Chris is like, I'm just here to get Eagly. And he goes to a hotel and is still not wanting to talk to anybody. But once Bordeaux kind of and they don't have any clearance to like find out where he is through the chip that they put in him.
Yeah.
But once now Bordeaux is kind of on their side, they ask her if she has clearance to find Chris. And sure enough, she does. So they are able to find Chris at this motel because he's getting ready to kind of leave town. And they all kind of tell him Adebayo kind of starts this big speech of like telling him how much she loves him. It's like, I got to know you. You're big and you're dumb, but you have the biggest heart I've ever known. And um, I feel so safe with you, and I feel when I'm with you, I feel loved, and I think all of us can say that. And she kinda goes, like, a little bit around the room and kind of gives a point for why everybody each one what he's done for each one of them.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
and
beautiful
yeah,
speech.
it's a really beautiful moment where they all kind of
And
confess how much they care
finally,
about him.
I mean, finally, for God's sake, this episode gives Danielle Brooks two actual emotional scenes that she's been
Yes!
missing for the entire
Yes.
season.
Oh, yes, and so she did also have that really great scene with Kia where, thanks to Judo Master, she goes and talks to her and reveals to her, like, "If I go with you, I would be unhappy, and if you go with me, you would be unhappy, so I'm not here to try to get you back, I'm here to let you go, and I'm always gonna
Yeah.
love you, that's never gonna stop. I'm not but, we're just in different places right now." So they have a
It's a
really kind of
tough old breakup.
yes, they have a tough breakup, it's really emotional, but there's very much love there, it's very kind of a
Yeah.
amicable, and
It's very mature.
oh, yes, and a really great emotional scene of maturity and them kind of really realizing what doesn't work for them. So, yeah, she gets a great scene there, and then we move on to this really great scene where she kind of gets to lead the charge in reminding Chris what he's done for all of them.
Yeah.
And
She's
then
so good
yeah.
at that. I do
Yes!
like Danielle Brooks for bringing that. She can do it
Heart.
fairly quickly. She
Yeah.
can bring real levels of just
Yeah.
teary-eyed,
Emotion, yeah.
warm emotion.
Yeah.
It's not quite, in other things I've seen her in, I don't ever I mean, there's been emotional things in a tough way, sure, but I think she excels more at kind of warm emotion,
Mhm.
loving
Yeah,
sort
uh-huh.
of emotion when you're expressing all that in a very, very outward way, a very
Mhm.
um the exact kind of thing she does in this episode. I just think
Yeah.
she's so good at. So
Yeah.
she was missing doing that in the entire rest of the season,
Yes.
given how
So
great she was in the
yeah.
first season, how standout I think she was as a character, as a performer in the first season.
Mhm.
I do feel at times, season 2 didn't give Adebayo that much to do.
Yeah, and I remember you feeling that really early on in the season, so I did kind of have to give you a bit of a heads up that like, no, they'll give her some interesting things near the end. So I kind of had to give you a heads up on that because I know you were feeling that in those first kind of
Yeah.
few episodes. But yeah, then as they all kind of leave the hotel room, he stops her again and asks her and was
Yeah.
like, "Please, just did it mean anything?" And she ultimately admits, Yes, of course it meant something. It meant everything," is what she says. And then she walks away. And then he goes back into the room and we see him fist bumping and jumping and celebrating. He's so freaking happy. And then we get this
That's
great
all he needed.
montage.
That's
Yeah.
literally all he needed.
Yes, he needed to hear that. So now we get this great montage of them collecting all the money from Adrian's basement, and they're putting something together. They're setting up an office, they're making plans. We cut to another party boat scene where they're listening to the band. I think they're called Foxy Shazam, who does the theme song. So we actually get a
Yes.
live performance in the episode of Foxy Shazam singing the theme song for this season.
They were a very eclectically dressed bunch.
Yes, they're a fun looking band. So, and Harcourt
Mullets
is
and
singing along.
mustaches everywhere.
Yeah, and Harcourt is singing along with the words. She's dancing. She's like fist bumping. She's getting into it. And so we cut between like scenes of that with them putting this office together. And then we get kind of this fun like walk out of we get a really sweet moment where Economos is cutting Eagly's talons, and then Eagly
Yes.
just puts one wing around him, and Economos's face, he like doesn't know what to say. We just kind of get like a bit of like a lip quiver from him because he's like
It's
overcome.
very cute.
Yeah, it's very sweet. Like Eagly kind of gives him this half hug, not a full hug yet, but like
No.
I trust you kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it's really sweet. And then we get this kind of shot of everybody walking and like really happy and looking at each other. And then we pan out even further and we see, Tim Meadows, he left Argus and is there with them.
Yeah.
Bordeaux is there with them. Judo Master's there with them. So it's all our crew. And then some of the new characters we've met have decided this is where I want to be, as opposed to kind of what I was doing. So we get this kind of long pan out walk of them walking out of their new offices, and it's checkmate. So it's kind of this detective full service kind of thing that they've created.
They're all happy. Everybody's Adebayo's doing what she wants to do, detective wise. This is going to be really good. They're going to help all these people. They have Peacemaker there. Is it Chris there as an actual
with the center,
sort of somebody with I suppose he doesn't have abilities himself.
No, but he has suits and he's tactical.
Suits and what have you. And that is where the show ends. Yeah? No?
Is that
why
where you
is
thought
that not where the show ends? Why is this not where the show ends? Well, it is, yes. I was ready for, yes, that's very nice, isn't it? We've had all this niceness. We understand the backstory of everything now. Everybody's defected from Flagg because he's being terrible. Flagg, we know what Flagg's doing. We know what Flagg's planning on doing. Surely we're going to see that going forward.
In movies,
yes, I understand.
Because there is a Salvation, and there is a Salvation something comic run that is like based off of putting DC villains into this place, into this kind of tropical place. So it's a comic run. So who knows if we're getting a Salvation series or if this is just going to play into the movie somehow. So
let me say this then. I would hope to God we are getting a Salvation series, given what actually does happen at the end of this season of television, because it is not a particularly happy one in the end. Unfortunately, let's blame it on Rick Flagg.
Yeah, so Chris ultimately, after this great night out, presumably leaving the party boat with Harcourt, he gets black bagged and taken away, and Rick Flagg is there, and he ends up throwing him into the Salvation place and tells him, we need to test it to see, how long somebody can survive here. And you've signed off that you are, opening yourself up to volunteer for things like this. He's like, I didn't sign anything, but it's presumably like all his stuff from, something he probably signed from before
Oh,
when,
from
from
Task
Task
Force
Force
X.
X stuff. He's like, "Oh, no, we see your signature right here." And so they end up leaving him there and making the door disappear, and now he's trapped in Salvation. And his friends don't know where he is, and how is he gonna tell them? How are they gonna find out where he is? And they just and like also his plan was like, we just move the door every time, is kind of what he was telling that board.
Yeah.
Um, so we can go and like so they'll never know where the door is gonna appear, kind of thing. So yeah, we end this season with Chris trapped, and he's looking around. He doesn't have any of his suits or anything, and we just hear like these roars from some kind of whatever crazy creature in the distance, and that's
Yes.
how we end. Yeah.
Not 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 satisfying though, is it really? Just teasy. It's teasy. I understand it being teasy. It can be teasy.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't mind that. Maybe I've just got too used to, or maybe everybody has gotten too used to the old after credits tease situation
Yeah.
rather than in the actual show.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, but the after credits are part of the actual show, sure, if you want one of those. I think we do have a couple of like after credit weird things going on.
Yeah,
Not
every
that
episode
it
has like a
seems to
weird,
mean
not that it
anything.
adds to the story, it's just kind of a comedic
No.
little button on things. Yeah.
But I was really, really just pulling for Peacemaker to end in a positive light. And yeah, okay, in the future of DC, we can go and have Flagg get him and shove him into Salvation and do this, and maybe have this Salvation story,
Yeah.
as you said, from the comics actually play out. Bring
Maybe do an animated
random other
thing.
DC, and maybe do
Yeah.
an animated thing. Do whatever you want with it. But look, Gunn pulled how many characters for the Suicide Squad? You can do that again. I mean, a couple of people survived that movie, so you
Yeah.
can bring them back in and shove them into Salvation as well, and bring a load more people. Maybe bring some other people from that first Suicide Squad movie that they didn't do so well in, but then we
Yeah.
can revamp them again, like we already have done with certain people,
Yeah.
and whack them in there as well. And
Yeah.
have it all be a bit chaotic, and let's try and escape this place altogether while we're all actually kind of hating each other. And it's a bit like the Suicide Squad, but it's not exactly like that movie because they're not on a mission of any kind.
Yeah.
That would be good. But do that afterwards. Don't do it right at the end of this when I'm feeling nice and happy. I mean, this is personal opinion. It's fine. It's interesting. I like that they're taking this bold swing. I do. I like that we're not at ease in anything in this DC world. I think everything's very in flux, isn't it? Within the actual fictional world, not the production. I think the production is now quite clear and solid. But so it's interesting. I like it from a world building point.
Like where could this possibly go?
Where can it go point? It is pure personal opinion of I just wanted to see everybody happy at the end.
Especially knowing, like how are we even going to continue this story if there's no plans for Peacemaker season 3? Yeah.
I mean,
when
you
are
would
we going to
think,
see?
No, well,
again?
exactly. You would think, when are we going to see Chris again? Now, character-wise, you would assume, logically, that Bordeaux and Harcourt and Tim Meadows are kind of going to know where he is.
Yeah.
You would assume they're
we didn't
kind of going to have an idea of probably where he is.
Because we didn't see a formal leaving of them or a formal separation of them with Rick Flagg. So presumably, are they still with Argus? Have they like officially made that a final thing for themselves? Or are they kind of playing both sides and being double agents in a sense? Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of kind of questions left behind, but really kind of an interesting way, I think, overall to end the series, at least
Very
for now.
much so.
Yeah,
very much so. But it's a great show, isn't it? I mean, it's such a. I think it was such an important show for this era of DC.
Yeah.
has consistently done so well. I know only over 2 seasons and ultimately over 16 episodes. It's not a phenomenally long length of time or
Yeah.
long run time, but it is so indicative and definitive of what this DC is trying to be,
Yeah.
and does it so well, blending all the absolute mental craziness of everything with vulgarity, which you're
Yeah.
gonna get a fair amount of vulgarity. I don't think even in some movies going forward, I know Superman didn't necessarily have this in because Superman really had to succeed, and thank God it did.
Yeah.
But it like publicly, worldwide in our real
Yeah.
world, it really had to do well. They couldn't have gone vulgar with it.
Yeah, exactly.
They just couldn't have, as
But
much as they
we'll
may have
probably get that with
sometimes possibly wanted
Supergirl.
to. We'll probably get that when, and it will just ease it more and more in, up to the point where we're getting really bizarre things from DC in
Yeah, but
movies, and they're doing well themselves.
exactly, and I think even Creature Commandos, which I think, this show started essentially Morgan hasn't seen the concept of the show started because you fell behind on Marvel. But now that we are
Yes.
working with a franchise where you can get in on the ground floor, I don't
Oh
want you to
yeah, I'm
miss
fine now.
anything. So I would maybe down the line love to do Creature Commando so that you are kind of ingratiated in
I
all
mean,
of the
that's
things
fair.
of
Yeah.
the interconnectivity that he's doing with this universe. So maybe near the time Supergirl comes out or is about to come out, if we're in a good place with other shows, I
Yeah,
would love to
possibly.
maybe do a catching up with Creature Commandos or something.
I
So
mean, when is the Supergirl movie?
it's this year. Is it May?
Yeah. Is
I
it?
don't
Is that
I
right?
don't I don't know. I'm not sure.
There's a Superman sequel as well, isn't there? Man of
Yeah.
Tomorrow. When's
Mhm.
that?
Let's see.
Is that next year? I don't know.
Supergirl.
I don't know when anything is. But with that being said, I think that would be a good idea
June.
to do something like June.
Expected. It says
Okay.
expected June 26th for Supergirl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, what about Man of Tomorrow?
Man of Tomorrow next year.
Next year. I thought
Yeah.
that was next year. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're very
Expected July next year is kind of the projected
Kryptonian
date.
focused at the moment, aren't we,
Yeah.
I suppose? We like the world of Metropolis and Superman
Mhm.
at the moment in
Yes.
Gunn's sphere, don't we? We're
Yeah.
not delving necessarily into the Gotham of it all.
No,
But I
no.
suppose, can we delve into the Gotham of it all when we still have a Gotham of it all by somebody else going on?
Yeah, and he's happy with having that be a separate thing and then maybe having
He
another.
is.
So we could have like 2 congruent Batmans going on, which I think is really interesting. 'Cause I like
It's
that he's
very
not
interesting. I
I like that he's not trying
I
to
wouldn't.
force this Batman into his kind of universe that he's building.
No,
Yeah.
no, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, because I think
Mm-mm.
it's just keep, as long as they're good, and obviously I think the Batman,
Yeah, and it's
personally, I
very much
think the Batman was very good,
yeah.
and the Penguin, series was
Mhm,
very good and well respected and did
mhm.
critically well, even,
Yeah, mhm,
awards wise well,
yeah,
didn't it?
mhm.
So why not let that be separate?
Yeah,
But
it's like
also,
having
why
different
not
runs of a Batman
maybe?
comic happening,
Well, exactly. Why not also maybe have a little bit of fun with it if you can? If you can,
Yeah.
maybe you can whack some Colin Farrell into a Superman movie. I know you're not going. I know that's a bit silly. I know it's a bit extreme. I know it's a bit stupid because
Yeah,
the Superman's got
different.
literally nothing to do with the Penguin. But I get that. I understand
Yeah.
that. But I'm talking about the idea of doing
Mhm.
something
Something
like
like
where
that.
you're
Yeah.
whacking it all together. I'm not saying we have to follow suit with exactly what the MCU did in their
Mhm.
heyday. I'm
Yeah.
not saying we have to do that at all and have
And he's
Pattinson and
already
Corrin Sweat come together
yes.
and be, oh, we're a team now. We don't have to
No,
do
we don't
that.
need to have like this team up thing. But you're working in this universe, like, and he's found really kind of creative and thoughtful, and even just like we're just gonna act like that doesn't count things.
Yeah.
He's working within the bounds of what has been set up while also refreshing it. So he's found kind of a fun way to do that. So I mean, I don't think it's
I mean,
beyond him to attempt that, but I don't think it's necessary. But it could be a fun
the
thing
best
if he's able to pull it off, if he does decide to kind of have a cheeky thing of mixing worlds a little bit.
yeah, but the best thing he could do in that is kind of something he's already done, and it is take the tiny little characters, the small characters,
Mhm.
and mesh and mingle them around everywhere.
Yeah. Mhm.
The big ones that everybody
Yeah.
knows, we can keep the separation and all that
Mhm.
business, but if we're still, for example, if we're still having Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, which I don't know if we are, I assume we are. I assume she's still,
Yeah, I mean, the
kind of happy to
continuity of that film is
go forward.
still
Yeah,
pretty much accurate,
go
so
forward as doing that. So why couldn't we have her continue to appear alongside characters such as Peacemaker,
Mhm.
like she already has done anyway,
Yeah.
and going forward and in
Mhm.
this world, and therefore, I'm not talking about her fighting Superman, but it's the
Yeah.
same blend. We've had Luthor in Peacemaker, we've had
Mhm.
Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad, Harley Quinn was in the Suicide. It's all a
Yeah,
train,
Peacemaker was in Superman, yeah, mhm.
Peacemaker was in Superman, but we could also have that version of Harley in Matt Reeves's world, couldn't we? Maybe she could play it a bit differently, but she could be there.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, have a little bit of fun with it. We don't need the big dogs going up in each other's movies, but
No. Yeah, I mean,
the villains can, I think.
if anybody could, I think he could make it work, but ultimately, I still also enjoy the idea of having just 2 separate versions of something kind of going simultaneously. Because
I mean, it would be fun.
when have there been many cases of something like that? Especially with a
Yeah.
big character, so, yeah.
I mean, are you suggesting that there's a completely different Batman eventually within
Mhm.
this world?
Yeah.
And then Pattinson and Matt Reeves just have
That's just their own thing.
couple of
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
I mean, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting. Anyway, I think that is going to do it for Palling with Peacemaker. Jeannine, here we are ending this series, ending this show,
Mhm.
talking about our wants and desires for the future of DC in the only appropriate way, I think, to end a show like this, given that it teases you a lot with things to come. I wouldn't like to end the story here at all,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
We must see what comes after, and I'm sure in due time we will do that. But as we say, this is not the only show we have on this podcast feed. All our TV-based shows are here on a Monday, both on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, where you may be watching today. Subscribe and ding your notification bell here if you are, or on the podcast feed, where you may simply be listening today. Do subscribe wherever you are listening on all major platforms. Leave your comments on Spotify. Let us know what you think. Leave your likes and ratings and reviews and share it around and all that good stuff as well everywhere else. If you are watching, things have been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen all episode long. But we also have Morgan Hasn't Seen every Wednesday. And the main show, It's a Wonderful Podcast itself, celebrating old movies every Friday. Plenty of things to get excited for. And a return to diving into Doctor Who
Yes.
is arriving in due course on this particular show, or this particular feed. It is obviously, it's taking the place of Palling with Peacemaker, shall
Yes.
we say,
Yeah.
given that that this is finished now.
Yeah.
But we're also getting back into the world of Bridgerton pretty soon as
Yes.
well. So, all our TV-based things, they're on a Monday. They're always on a Monday. That's the point of Mondays here
Yes.
on It's a Wonderful Podcast. So just stay tuned on a Monday if you like television, basically, is the name of the game. If you want to support us on Patreon or donate in any way, which we can't do what we do without that generous support, find the links in the description of this episode to go ahead and do that. Or, of course, just find us on and across all the social medias on the app formerly known as Twitter and on Blue Sky at It's a Wonderful One. Find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at the Purple Dawn with the 3 instead of the E and the because, Jeannine.
3 is a magic number.
On Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky at the Purple Dawn. All your peacemaking is where.
You can find me at Jeannine _ on Twitter, Jeannine on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. And if you want to get any merch for any of our shows, just check the description for the link or search G9 Design on tpublic.com.
There we go. That does, of course, leave us only one thing left to do. And I don't know what impression to ask you to do, Jeannine, because there's no possible silly impression to be had, really, from Peacemaker. So in a bittersweet yet hopeful way for the future of DC, count us out.
3, 2, 1.
Bye.